Make sure. Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SWARMathon, SWARMathon 7. And SWARMathon is a series about AI, how AI is transforming the past to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Manaz Ajasmaili, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Anne Cantera. And hi, Anne. Let's start with a quick overview of the UN 17 SDGs. These include goals like no poverty, zero hunger, good health, quality education, and clean water, all connected to creating a better world for the next generation. You can check out the full list in the comments, following the link that I put in the comments. And if you or someone you know is working in these areas and would be interested in joining us as a speaker in future sessions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or Anne. And today we're focusing on a mix of goals, SDG 1, 2, 3, and 4, through that lens of something deeply personal, how AI is shaping the lives of children and the role moms and caregivers play in that story. Our guiding question today is, how can AI be a force for care, creativity, and connection in children's lives while also protecting them from bias, burnout, and harm? And we're so lucky to have three brilliant panelists with us who are thinking deeply about that questions every day. So let's go.
Hey everyone, it's Anne. I just want to do a quick introduction of our guests. We have Emily Jones. She's a conversation designer who builds trust-centered AI experiences. She's curious about how tech reshapes the way we learn, grow, and connect, especially across generations. We have Michelle Novak, a UX strategist and longtime AI practitioner. Michelle has worked on machine learning systems behind the scenes for years and is a mom of three. She has seen firsthand how AI is reshaping childhood, learning, and creativity. And we have the peas to my carrots, Yadi Arroyo, a human factors engineer designing for banking and healthcare AI systems. She brings a systems level view into how we build tech that works for real people and where we need to hold the line. And more importantly than all of that, these are all moms who work in AI who have plenty to say on the subject. If you guys could just give a brief introduction. We'll start with you, Emily.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Emily. I'm a conversation designer, builder, mom. In my day job, I design AI experiences for chat and voice. And at home, I am a mom of three. My kids are younger, so that is the perspective I'm giving today from like younger ages. And so a lot of my focus is on the tech that I give them and not as much as the tech that the world is giving them. So that's my perspective today. I'm really curious, but also just, concerned and want to be aware of what's going on. Thanks.
Michelle, you want to go next?
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Michelle Novak. I'm a UX designer and strategist, and I did work for years in metadata, and so I've worked a lot with search systems. So I am not an AI expert, but I do work every day doing UX design, strategy, learning design, and I'm a mom of three. I have two older kids who are actually fully functioning adults with working in STEM actually, and who have LinkedIn profiles, and I don't want to, embarrass them. And I have a son who's 14, who's going into high school, who's not here, but I'm in Buffalo, but I live right outside Chicago, but I'm visiting a friend here. So on to you, Yadi.
Well, I'm Yadi. I am a neurodivergent mom, a systems thinker, and a multimodal AI designer who became better and actually less selfish once my son was born. He made me rethink everything, who we build for, like who we leave out, and why simplicity, dignity, and accessibility aren't nice to have. That's the core responsibility that I take as a designer, that I'm like, all right, if I'm designing for two important ecosystems, health and banking, vulnerable people, right? Like everybody has to be able to use those things, right? Have the healthcare they need and access to the money that they make. So to me, I take that seriously, and I don't think I would without my son. And he's a tiny little dude. He's like 3 years old,
Oh,
you know. So that's my bias. My bias is from someone that like probably isn't gonna. They're not gonna use AI in preschool, and if they do, it's probably behind the scenes, right? But that's kind of my bias there. And also for being in AI, I sure hate it sometimes. But also AI is different than Gen AI, so I want to kind of make that distinction too, right? That my gripe is more with Gen AI and the front end access than it is with actual AI, because AI has been behind the scenes for a long time.
okay. Awesome, everyone. Thank you. So, in the first part of this discussion, we're gonna discuss like when AI actually helps kids. So, let's start with you, Emily. You've seen how AI can help kids learn, create, and communicate in more personalized ways. Can you share where like it's working and where it might be getting in the way?
Sorry, I can start. And I feel like, again, the experience that I've had is just with my kids who are younger. So we've given my daughter an iPad sometimes, and we try to limit screen time. But when we do travel and things like that, we give her access to specific apps that are building. We've tried to give her more experience with like coding type apps on I feel like Khan Academy might have been one, and then a few others. But so I feel like that's where I've used it. I don't know if I've seen a lot of other use cases that stand out to me. So I'd like to hear from some other people on the panel if they've seen it used. I've seen it more as a tool, like for me to help kids, but for my children, they haven't used as much.
Sure. Do you want?
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I was like, Michelle.
I could talk a little. I mean, I have older kids, but my son is 8th grade. Or he was in 8th grade this year, and they used this really interesting modeling program. They had to model a drop of supplies to people that were on the moon. And if we go beyond all the colonial impacts and what that actually means, which we're not going to get into here, but like they had to model so that the parachute could hold the supplies, and then it involved like the weight and the protection, and it was like this whole thing, and it modeled risk, it modeled the structural piece of it, and then at the end it kind of puts out this report. So he has to plug in the variables knowing these facts. At the end it puts out this report that's like beautiful. I mean, it's well designed and everything. And then they're like, I believe it's AI, but they get feedback on what they did, and they're told, okay, this produced this and this and this. And so this was a science project he worked on. So I thought that was a pretty novel use of conceptualizing AI. And this is an 8th grader, but he still had to do the research and go back in and justify things. But I think one thing that was it was really good, but also because it produced this finished report, it kind of felt like it was done. And when he had to go back in, when his teacher's like, this isn't quite right, it was kind of hard because everything was in this model. So I'm seeing it being used quite a bit. I mean, the other thing is kids don't have textbooks like I did, and most of us did, at least on this panel, I assume. So when they're going to look for information, they're going to Google, they're going to like a search to get information because they don't have it all in one place. They might have told to watch some YouTube videos or something. So, or they have some articles, and so all of their learning tools are in these disparate places. So having the ability to use Google or these other tools helps bring the information together, but it can be really it can be difficult. But that's like more of like a positive thing, giving kids access to information they wouldn't have because they don't have a set of encyclopedias or something that we used to have. I had encyclopedias and stuff.
Well, let's talk
Awesome.
about how synthesis of information is a lot better a year out than it was a year back, right? Like I had to eat my words because at the time, like a year ago, like AI models weren't like how they were today. Like right now I'm impressed with the outputs because they're actually multimodal. They're actually like a while there it was just text, and now they can actually do different charts. They can like contextualize the conversation. The way they're doing the tuning is amazing because now they can explain where the rationale is. You can do deep research. You can actually go back and look at the citations, which at one point that wasn't a thing, right? So like when I heard you did metadata, Michelle, like a long time ago, I geeked out because you know data literally from the inside out, which is what powers AI, right? Whether it's Gen AI, traditional AI, machine learning, whatever, right? You need good data. And hearing the example you gave your son, I was like, oh, that's an organic way of using generative AI. Because what they're doing is they're doing it to synthesize the report that the model created. So you're maybe using traditional AI in some aspects of the flow, and then you use Gen AI to generate the report. But now because the outputs are a lot better, like it does look glossier, it does look this, it does look that. But the problem is you still have hallucinations, right? Like how do you discern that if you're a child, right? So there's a lot of really cool stuff that like even in this short conversation you've made me understand. I'm like, okay, don't be harsh. Like, and that's usually how I work. I have a strong stance and then I kind of go to the middle where I'm like, no, AI should not be used. Okay, maybe within context, right? But I think that's the important thing, that like within context, what is that context, right? Because the problem we run into is that the minute we start saying, let's use AI for teaching, some greedy bastards at some magnet school are going to be like, like, let's just take out the human out.
Right. Agree.
It's different if the teacher tells me I want to use AI and I want to use it in this. And like, if let's say the teacher tells me I want to use that on the front end, I want them to interface with the AI. They're the professionals. I want to take their advice over my own little rinky-dinky, like, I'm a mom and overprotective, right? Because that's my bias, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I'm a neurodiverse mom with a neurodiverse kid, and anybody who listens to this show knows I'm constantly railing against public schools and their way they treat the neurodiverse kids. So to be devil's advocate for Gen AI, I've had to do a lot of studying and learning over the last 3 years. And I have to take that information and bend it into a way that with my learning issue, I can understand it. And for me, my understanding is it has to make sense or it isn't real. Like I can't wrap my head around it if it doesn't make sense. So I was always that kid in school who was like, but why? But why? But why? So the Gen AI is sort of like the tutor with infinite patience. But there's an age thing there where like at what age is a child mature enough to have those unsupervised conversations with Gen AI, regardless of whether they're using it to learn or not. But I do want them to be able to have that specialized tutor so they don't have to put themselves out there in the classroom like I always had to and say, but why? But why? And keep raising your hand and feeling embarrassed and all those things. So if the teacher's teaching a lesson and I have some kind of tutor and I don't understand what she's saying, I can work it out with my tutor instead of working it out in front of my whole classroom. But then that in the same vein, I don't want my child having unsupervised conversations with this tutor. So I don't have an answer. I just have kind of thoughts.
I love that.
And that was a good example of using AI to help kids. So how do you think, like, what do you think we're losing, like, with like this with this amount of personalization for some kids with special needs? What do you think that, like, what are the other side of it?
Well, I mean, this same kid, I have this, user group of 1, so it's n equals 1. But he, when Character AI came out, he had downloaded the app, and he likes to write stories, right? And so he was using it a lot, and it was kind of freaking me out. And then the story came out about the kid who was using it unsupervised and ended up dead, right? And I freaked out. And then my son is a great kid, and I said, you have to delete that app right away. And he's like, okay, mom, okay. Like, but he's the kid that's going to delete it, and he's going to like let me see, but not every kid is going to do that. So I think an answer kind of to your question, Anne, and maybe to the broader question is like, I don't know what age is okay. Like, I know a lot of adults that are using it a lot, and you have conversations with them, and I'm like, wow, like you're using this quite a bit, and it could be giving you wrong data. The same science teacher that my son had the modeling experience with. Like he had to do another research report, and his teacher told him specifically not to not to use the Google summary, the AI summary, because it was incorrect. And he told me, when the day before the report was due and he didn't have it done, he was like, yeah, I made that mistake. Like I didn't listen to her. And now, I spent all this time trying to find these facts that aren't true. So I didn't mean to take us off into another world, but that's where.
No, I think it's right on the
You're
mark.
fine.
It's
Yeah.
about balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
feel
by the
like,
way, so
yeah, go ahead.
no,
Yadi.
it's about balance, right?
Yeah.
Like I think
Yeah.
that's what people forget. It's not about AI, and it's not about human, right? It's about like what's the balance between other humans and humans, AI and humans, AI and AIs, because now we have agentic, right? So it's like, what's that balance? Because to Michelle's point, the same professor that came up with the model for that, like storytelling, because that's a creative ops and use creativity, right? As your little brainstorming partner to write stories, to write outlines, to keep track of continuity in movies, right? So basically, there's a lot of things we can do. And regarding the children, if we talk about balance, right? If one end is using technology to create curriculums, right? It's okay because the child doesn't see that. That's teacher side, right? But what about like anything front side? I think that's the one that needs more regulation. The problems that we're like in like this cowboy land. So that's why when we're working on system stuff like healthcare or banking, or I guess what's the other big stuff? Anything that's like logistics, waste management, right? It might be simple, but you still need that balance between like, okay, who could get hurt? And I don't think people are asking that question enough. Like, what's the possible adverse income? Because the problem with probabilistic designs is you don't know how they're going to come up with the answer. When you're working on deterministic designs, you do. Right? You can create specific paths, yada, 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 right? And with AI, because most people are hiring people that don't have experience, not to be a dick, but let's be real, right? They don't know how to think in scale. They don't know how to think in probabilistic designs. They don't know that my work is to actually work on the edge cases. Like in UX, they always say work on the 90%, work on the 80%. Nope. In AI, work on 110%. Because whatever you don't know and then plus, right? So that's kind of, I think, what's important as designers and architects, we have to kind of put in that extra effort to be contrarian, right? I'm a people pleaser, but when it comes to my job, I'm an asshole, right? Like I need to protect the people that I'm designing for, right? And I realize this about me. It's people that know me will agree. They'll be like, yeah, they can be a little firm. Never with that intention. It's always for like the greater good. And I think it's my son, right, who kind of like helped me understand the importance of fighting for those that can't fight for themselves,
You touched on something though, Yadi, and for me, it's like we know the harms of social media. We try. Where's the regulation? It's been years. Like,
Yep.
how many times does Zuckerberg need to be brought up in front of Congress and get away with what he gets away with because he donates money to politicians? So, what makes us think this any different? If there's money to be made, it comes down to the moms. I feel like once again, right? It's on us.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that. I want to hear from Michelle and Emily how they do their superhero mom thing on the ground level. It's true, Emily. It's true. Don't be shy.
I think it's that I don't. I just try my best. I do my best. No, and I don't know, like, I don't know if this is getting us off track, but I just feel like something we touched on earlier and something that came out recently, there was like a paper that came out about tracking like neural connectivity when people are using ChatGPT, and like they did 3 different groups, and the group that did not use ChatGPT showed the highest neural connectivity, and they were able to actually remember what they wrote and access their memory. And the people who used ChatGPT, they found as they were writing their essays, relied on it too much, and they got it done, right? They got the job done, but they weren't able to remember what they were doing, their essays. And so I think that tells us that we can use it. I mean, it wasn't all bad. I mean, I think that we just need to use it as a tool. So we need to use it in a specific way through a different process. Maybe we don't start with it, but we use it to enhance our learning. And I think, like you said, using it for teachers, creating lessons, that's really a cool use case for me. And then as a mom, I like to, I don't know, sometimes if I'm too overwhelmed, sometimes I just like to get in like separate from myself and take some space and use it as like a creative way to just get more ideas, whether I use those ideas or not, but sometimes that's what I do.
I think
I don't know if that took us off topic, but
I think it depends.
No, it
I use
wasn't.
it as like the great explainer. Like,
Mhm.
right, like I had said, like, why is this like this? And other people are using it like therapeutically, right? And then other people are using it as like brainstorming partner. So I feel like there's categories of how we use it, and some of them are detrimental and some of them are not. I've been able to learn 10 years worth of school in 3 years because I'm always in there either taking posts that I don't, Reuven Cohen, his posts, I never understand them half of the time. I put it in ChatGPT and say, explain this to me like I'm in 7th grade. And now all of a sudden I understand what he's talking about. And without Gen AI, that would take me so much time.
Mhm.
So I think, and maybe defining those categories is a great idea for us to say, yeah, this is not kind of doing you harm. This is helping you grow. But this, maybe you don't want to use it.
Well, let's talk about that because you
The
had a class on
policies.
workflows, right? You had a workflow class. So I've been trying to introduce human factors into workflows now. So including sentiment, like, is the user mad? Because the one answer is going to be different. The same thing with what you mentioned, categorizing, because that's what I had to do with like my banking stuff, right? Like you have buckets of things. Like if someone's trying to make a payment, there's certain intents you want to do. And there's a whole cluster, right? If it's something else like education, to your point, the generative abilities of being able to create your own podcast with Notebook and LMM, right? So that wasn't made for kids. But how cool would it be if I know my kid wants to hear something versus read it because they have bad eyesight? How are you going to ask a blind person to read? And you could ask them to use the screen reader, sure, right? But what I'm saying is everybody has limitations, sometimes not to the point where it's obvious. So there's this thing called invisible disabilities, right? That's what you're addressing. And the way you're thinking about it kind of made me realize I'm going to steal your idea. Because as I'm working on the flows in my little flow charts, I can actually put a label on it that says important guardrail needed, right? Or guardrail definitely needed. I can even have a system where it's like red, yellow, green that kind of says, yep, this one's good to go, or this one needs a lot of help, right? Because to your point, what starts off with identifying, I call it a postmortem. What could go wrong before you design? And then kind of add the guardrails. I just thought it was brilliant what you said because I'm like stealing it.
So what worries you most about AI being used in schools or in healthcare or anything that has something to do with children?
People taking advantage.
Yeah, I think the unsupervised is what scares me the most, and how much content can be created out there that isn't regulated. That people
say we don't
create it and put it out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biases that are built in, and then all the copyright stealing and everything, like it's been very good over the years. Because I mean, we're talking years that I've been telling my kids, hey, that Britney Spears photo was photoshopped. Like that's not her body, or like like this was I'm dating myself here, but like when my kids were younger, it was more about like, hey, not everything you see on the internet is real, right? And now I've got this younger kid and I'm like, yeah, just because you created that in Mid-Journey and it looks like Darth Vader, like that was copyrighted stuff stolen, right? So like talking about that. And then most recently with the situation where he was working on a project and like having to like, I was talking with another dad about this morning, and it was like, you've got the situation where like when we were kids, we would do the research, right? And we come up with the, here's the different theories or whatever. Now ChatGPT or something similar, like, Gemini is spitting out the theories. And then you have to go back and research whether these are actual like facts. So it's sort of like a reverse, it's still research, but it's, you know, it's a different thing. But for me, the bias that's been built into these models for generations, it's the same as what was, you know, the textbooks we were reading, right? Like, you know, you're getting all this bias already. So it's not like the bias is different. It's just, it's all over the place now, right? Like, so before, like, you knew, okay, it's in the textbook, but you would only know this if you had done enough work to know, hey, like these facts about the American Revolution aren't true, or these facts about, you know, the Civil War aren't true. I'm very US centered, right? I'm in the US, but, you know, we're talking global issues here. So for me, with AI, it's like we haven't addressed the initial underlying systemic problems, and now it's like it's all over. And, you know, your kid can download an app from, you know, Apple Kids, and you know, I was telling the panel earlier, you know, he's downloading an app from Apple Kids. It should be safe. He has to get my permission to do it, and it wants to. He needs to upload his photo, and then he gets himself, you know, as a character that he wants to be. You know, so these kind of tools are free. But they're stealing, you know, my kids' data, and they're coming through, you know, so there's just all these different things that are coming now. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't feel like it's just AI specific, but AI is magnifying them and making it 100 times worse in so many ways, or generative AI especially. But
I feel like that's a good segue though into the algorithm discussion too, because I so worry about what my kid is being fed on YouTube. And my kid has been on YouTube, and let me say this, if I could do things over again, I would do them differently because we're learning our lessons now. My kid has been on YouTube since he was like 2. And he used to sit and watch kids open Christmas presents. That was his kink. He would love to watch kids open gifts and get toys. And I didn't realize he was getting his dopamine hits at 2 years old. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So I'm very curious what everybody thinks about that, the algorithm piece of it.
It scares me. I feel like, it's like you said, it's just showing you things. You can't control it. You can't expect what's coming next, and you don't know if it's going to be harmful or something harmless. And the dopamine hit is real, and I feel like that, like, chemical reaction in your body and creating that is, honestly, it scares me, and I don't know what to do. And I feel like everything is moving so fast. And sometimes I feel overwhelmed because I'm like, how am I supposed to keep up with this? How am I supposed to know what's out there for my kids? Keep up at work, keep up at home. It's a lot. So, I mean, I'd like to hear how you guys are doing that too. I don't know.
What people don't know is that you come from the healthcare industry. So you used to be a nurse. So hearing that from you has a special gravitas to me, because I'm like, oh, like, she's a healthcare provider and is talking the same language I've been thinking, but been too scared to say. Right? So I'm like, all right, so let's take this seriously, because this isn't coming from Yadi Arroyo, like, wannabe nurse. It's like, no, it's coming from someone who was in the field, took that care and brought it over to conversation design. Right? I'm a big fan. I don't know if you can tell. I'm like, oh, I love her for many reasons. One of which is that I learned from you, and it's always in a seamless way, right? So you kind of just reminded me that I hadn't even thought about the dopamine hits. I'm still worried about what Michelle's saying. We can't even get the basics right. Like, if you're in the field and you know what you know, it'll make sense what Michelle is saying, because it's like, no, absolutely, like, absolutely. It's the people that don't know, that hype it up, don't want to work on it. They're like, let's just break things, move fast and break stuff. Sure, buddy. Like, and then that's how we end up with Facebook and little girls killing themselves, right? Like,
and VC is still giving money to men 90% more than they're giving money to women.
God. And the woman they do give it to, I don't even know any. Like, and well, I know one, but even then it wasn't a VC. Right? It's like, but that's the thing. I don't know. I mean, Michelle, so fears, right? My fear is now dopamine hits, in addition to what if someone's going to try to purposely target people to, like, take advantage. That's my worry. Like, and this is kids. Propaganda from people that I don't like, right?
Girl, we can only go so deep.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We'll get in trouble. We don't want to be marked by the system.
Yeah, automating inequality. I believe I think it's Virginia Eubanks. It's a great book, and it's and then Algorithms of Oppression. Two great books. Weapons of Math Destruction. Like there's some old school books that like kind of are dealing with these things, and we should put them somewhere in the chat or something. I'm terrible with remembering names and all that stuff.
People will ask too, Michelle. So be ready to have to list those off because people will be asking in the comments.
Yes, I will. I will definitely be sending links to it. But yeah, I don't know, Yadi. Now I forgot what you asked me.
Sorry, we're talking about fears, right? Like now I have a new fear. What other fears can you give me?
It was medicine. I'm just terrible. Journal of American Medicine just came out with a research study, and screen time had less to do. It was suicidality and screen time. And again, we can put the link in the chat or in the research wherever we're giving people, but it came down to the screen time wasn't the problem. It was they did it with boys and girls, and they did initial study, and then they did a 4-year follow-up. So I think the oldest kids were 14, and the suicidality was correlated with high social media use in girls and video games in boys. And but the screen time itself wasn't the problem. Now the study predated all this ChatGPT stuff, right? So it's like, who knows, if they had added in something else, but those two things seem to be causing more of the depression and the suicidality. But of course, these studies are flat, right? They're looking for screen time, and I don't know what other things that are in these kids' lives, and because social media on its own and video games on their own don't, there's also plenty of kids who didn't have the suicidality, and is suicidality the only thing? You know what I mean? Like,
well, you're a researcher, so you're going to poke holes and also be unbiased as much as you can.
As a parent, it gave me a little bit of like, okay, because my kid's on a screen all the time, and my older kids are on their screens too. I think I just read something though, Emily, where it was like you can substitute something, like it's kind of old school, but basically like let the kid finish whatever they're watching and then say, hey, let's do something, instead of saying put the screen, turn the, because that never works. I've never been able to do that. I've never I can't do it. It's never worked with my kids on anything that's addicting. Is just saying stop, because it didn't work with me, right? Why should it work with my kids?
On the hopeful side, though, a lot of millennial parents are like, no phones till you're 20. If
good luck with that.
And they're dumbing, like they're swapping their smartphones for dumb phones. There's a whole movement. So, and I've also kind of gotten the vibe that a lot of like Gen Alpha thinks AI is ridiculous.
Yes.
Yeah. So there is hope.
There's like the post general. Yeah. And yeah.
I feel like, I don't know if Michelle said it, or I think that it was mentioned, I think it was Michelle, like we need to have conversations with kids. We need to have conversations about what the technology is, how it's used, and open up, I don't know, just that like communication back and forth so that they understand more of what it is and they're not using it and thinking that it's a thinking thing, that it's something that can reason, just so they understand what exactly they're using. I think that's like something that I'm trying to figure out how to do now.
I totally agree. Like the critical thinking is the most important thing that we teach the kids to like themselves learn how to use this technology in a good way, and like notice when it's harming them or distracting them from what they were looking for. Like, and yeah. So
well, let's talk about people. Oh, the
Yeah.
people. Well, like
Oh,
before we go, like the people, right? Like there's good people and there's bad people. There's
Mhm.
good AI and there's
yeah,
bad AI.
exactly. That's
So
the
you
thing.
mentioned
Yeah.
critical thinking, which again, thank you. I'm like, duh, like that. I think maybe that's why I get so pissed when companies say, "Oh, we're AI first." I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm pencil first or brain first because I think first what I need to do, and then I pick the tool stack, right? Like it's the most absurd thing to me when people are like, "I'm AI first." I'm like, that just tells me you're lazy and that you're following buzzwords. Because people have been doing AI for a while, don't say they're AI first. In
Or
fact, they
marketing is
probably
in
say,
charge.
Exactly.
yeah, but back to like what you were saying about critical thinking. If AI could help critical thinking, which by the way, I'm a professional, right? I'm a professional in the field, right? So I go and use AI for the most ridiculous use cases. I'm like trying to break it, right? I mean, so that's how I found out psychology is one of the best. Like that's how you know that you're dealing with something smart in quotes if they can think through psychology. It could be I know technically they're not thinking, but my point being is the output is actually not accurate because it's you're asking for opinions, you're not asking for facts. So that's number one. So whatever output you get is great. But back to Ant's point, right, about teaching and learning in different ways. If you combine both, like I want to teach my kid critical thinking, but then I'm like, shit, I have a neurodiverse kid. Whatever works for everybody else is not going to work for this kid, right? Because they have different sensory inputs. Like my son is nonverbal, so it's like he has a speaking device. So he's been using an iPad since he was like a year old, right? Because he actually has a speech device, an assistive speaking device, right? So like that's how I got into healthcare because I'm like shit, I'm like learning about assistive devices, and I'm big into accessibility. So like we have to think language is not just spoken either. It's ASL, it's gestures, it's nonverbal cues, right? So if we combine this whole thing, we think about it from the human factors angle. I want to create good kids. Part of that involves giving them the tools to think things through and to decipher the good from the bad, humans or otherwise, right? AI included, and then have the safety rules in place so that if something goes wrong, they're not like no harm, no real harm comes to them, right? Like, and that's kind of like the baseline. It's like, no, maybe some harm. I get it. Like, they're gonna fall and they're gonna scrape their knee, right? With AI too, we'll learn together. But let's all combine it together and say there's missing accountability and there's missing like parent previews into the existing apps. Because if there was a parent view where I could control everything, you bet your house that my opinion would be different, right? I'd be like, sure, because there's accountability. They follow the COPA laws. Dude, VTech, I was before the chat, I talked about that one doll that was like taken off the market because it was capturing kids and intimate moments. Like imagine having like that doll
Oh,
accidentally in the parent's bedroom. So they didn't get any permission. So they broke a bunch of COPA rules. They had to take them out. This is a huge ass company. If they can do it, imagine all these startups that don't care and they steal data for funsies, and then they get mad that the data doesn't belong to them, and then they're like, "Why do we have to pay?" It's like, oh my god, stop being a dumbass. Critically think, right? So back to your point, Manaz, like I think that's really what my worry is, that we're going to stop critically thinking because we're going to outsource the coolest part about being a human to something that literally won't understand what humanity is because it's not their lived experience. AI will never be a human. AI could pretend, right? But we're literally the ones that have to live, breathe, get unhealthy, right? Our type of unhealthy is different than the machines, right? So, like, sorry for going on a rant. I just wanted to kind of point out that you had a really good point there. Like, critical thinking is huge.
Yeah, and no, I'm just gonna follow up on something you said too about the accessibility piece and the assistive technology because that's something that I'm very passionate about. And you know, someone who shall not be named came out last year and said that this generative AI was going to make all accessibility professionals and tools obsolete because it was going to be the systems, you know what I'm talking about. The systems were going to be able to adapt to you and know who you were and personally. And it's like, and it was utterly insane because you meet one person and who's neurodiverse, and you've met one person that's neurodiverse. Like everybody is different in the way they work. And one of the biggest barriers to accessibility are these so-called like accessibility overlays, right? They're supposed to make it accessible to people, but if someone's using a screen reader, they cannot use it. So there's all sorts of kind of ways that people are trying to sell accessibility as this way to reach people of all different ability levels, and it's not necessarily and oftentimes it is not doing it. But like you're saying, if you have if you as a parent or you as a teacher could perhaps get in there and see what was happening, and adjust it, but that would require co-creation on these companies' parts, like these ed tech companies who to actually work with parents and work with research participants that are disabled, have disabilities, parents who are neurodivergent, and they're not, as far as I can tell, that they're not doing it, or they're not doing a good enough job, and so stuff is getting released, and it's you've got users. I have a user research background, right? You've got users that are perfectly neurotypical trying to pretend that they're neurodiverse, or they're testing after release, or they're testing, so it's the same problems with all sorts of technology, but with the AI, it just seems to be there's this idea that it's safe, or that it's you can modify it, and it's not there, at least not what I've seen.
Yeah.
I love that you brought it up, because I don't know if we would have brought it up otherwise, but that's a huge worry too, because my son is special needs, right? So he's going to have different cognitive, and by the way, like special needs comes in enough flavors, kind of like languages, right? Like you have can't do this, can't see that, can't talk this, right? So you have to be able to understand that what seems like performative art, it's like UX theater here that we're talking about, right? Look at all the stuff we can do for accessibility. Tell me you don't know what you're talking about by not telling me that you don't know what you're talking about, because you just insulted a whole bunch of people just with one statement, because it's have you ever actually used the technology? Have you actually just literally put a blindfold on and went the whole day? I guarantee, that's an experiment I do with people. I'm just try a blindfold for a whole day. You know what? For a whole hour. People freak out. So you can't tell me that comment comes from empathy, because if you had real empathy, you'd put yourself in as close to shoes as you could with your audience and understand what they're really dealing with and solve real problems instead of this theater, right?
Well,
that's harsh for me to say.
I mean, we're all only temporarily able, right? You break your arm, whatever. But I think that what needs to be done is you actually work with someone who is blind, right? Versus someone who's wearing a blindfold, or
no. To your point, absolutely. Work with
co-create. Just want to make sure.
No. Yeah, well, that's why we have to clarify, because it will get misconstrued, right? Yeah. To your point, absolutely. Don't do what I said as your only recourse. That should be in addition to, so you don't say stupid shit online that makes you look ignorant, right? Because the people that are actually affected by that will know right away, oh, this person has never interviewed someone like me, or this person has never talked to an actual user of said program. You have to talk to the users. You can't assume, which, by the way, Michelle, that's another thing. We make a lot of assumptions in AI. That scares me, because those assumptions are biased. Right. And by the way, you mentioned co-creation. That's another because we haven't been using that word big enough. It should be louder, right? Let's co-create together with the different groups, and a lot of them, not just get a variety of there, right? Just get everybody and listen to them. We don't do enough listening. And on that note,
Okay, so the last 15 minutes of the discussion, we're gonna ask the audience if they have any questions that they want our speakers to answer. Share in the comments, and we'll try to answer all of them. And if not, I wanted to ask your opinion about how do you think, what's one thing that AI could do better for kids in the next year?
Okay, I'll say I love Notebook LM because I can customize my learning. Because I really like psychology now. So what I've been doing is certain articles, because I realized if I just put any article, it's going to be gross. But if I really fine tune it, it can reach me in just such a way where I'm washing dishes and I'm learning something new, right? And I don't have to depend on YouTube videos that are pre-created. I can create my own.
So you mean like kids using it as like having a different way for learning topics?
I think college kids are already doing that. Like that's my friend was the one that told me, my little buddy Miguel. He's like, "Do you know I use it to learn sociology?" And he
Mm.
too is neurodivergent. So he can't sit down and read textbooks, even if it's on iPad. He can't. Like that's long text. That's hell for us. For ADHD people, hell, it's hell. So like he has to be interactive, right? He has to like, oh, you're here. He has to make it feel like it's musical. And that's the thing. I'm musical too. I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell, but like sometimes people learn by different means, and that could be like feelings, right? Like sometimes I'll go in a classroom, won't even listen to the teacher. Depends on what they're writing on the board. I'm just zone out and be like, oh, I get it. Like when you get it, you get it. When you don't, that's when there's friction, right? So
Yeah.
A
kind of want
video
to try
game
with that.
for education would be great too, because I love to learn via video. Um, the three blue, one brown, or three, you know what I'm talking. Like he opened up like new channels in my brain with his videos for learning. So to be able to take a textbook or an article or something and have it turn into an educational video, I'm sure the environmental impact is horrific, but as somebody who has really had to hone my skills in taking information and making it digestible by my brain, if I could turn these things into videos, that would be awesome. And I think it would be really helpful for some kids too. I don't think that's really out there.
Okay, we have someone asking about the list of books that you mentioned, Michelle. So wanna share
It's
them again?
weapons of I think it's weapons of math destruction. I'll work on getting those to everybody. Yeah. Weapons of math destruction, algorithms of oppression, and automating inequality. Those are three books. Artificial unintelligence is another book, which is kind of more fun, but also there's a lot of great books out there, and I will put a
Okay.
bunch of stuff in there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Michelle, would you like to answer that question as well? Want me to repeat the question?
Oh, sure. What's the question?
So the question is, what's one thing AI could do better for kids in the next year?
I think it would be great if my kid has these programs that like they're governors on what he can look at on his computer, right? So it'll block if it thinks it's not a educational YouTube video, but there's no block on Google Gemini or whatever that Google summary thing is. I would love it if Google would turn that off for education clients, because it is producing a lot of misinformation. And my son's school is probably 60-70% kids that are first generation or immigrants, and they don't like they may be the only kid in their household who's really reading English, and if they're searching Google in English and they're coming up with these facts, and their parents not going to be able to read it sometimes and be like, what the hell is that, or they're not able to. So I would love it if that would be just turn it off for the education clients, so that the kids don't see that summary, because I don't think it's helping them. But that's maybe controversial.
No, it's
No,
not. I think
that was
it goes
great.
back to typical human user experience, right? If the client finds that it's not helpful, why occupy the top real estate of the page,
I
right?
mean,
Like it's like,
I know a lot of people who would like to be able to make it optional anyway, including me, because
yeah,
it throws like so much. It takes up,
thank you.
if you're talking about the fold, which I'm old enough to talk about above the
To know
fold,
what we're
right?
talking about, yes.
Right? Like we're talking about the top half. Like when you would go to when you go to a bookstore and you see the magazine or the newspaper, above the fold is what you see first. Well, you're seeing all the summary first, and you're not seeing the data, and I think it's messing a lot of things up. So honestly, that would be number one across not just children.
It's like they're magnifying their biggest flaw. Like it's like, look at how shitty we are. It's like, dude, it's not ready for prime time, man. Right? And if you're and the use case is education, and we're the tuners for your hallucinations, like, come on, dude, right?
But again, it's going to come down to parents parenting, because nobody else is. We're the only ones who are going to protect them, and it's hard when every other kid has a phone or every other kid has this, and it's exhausting to keep saying no and keep saying no and keep saying no. And my one son used to have a second phone that I didn't know about. So when I would take his phone, I had a secret phone. That was my middle kid, my sneaky one. So it's like this relentless. We need like AI tools to help us parent and scan. Like what is my kid into when I'm not looking? That's the AI I want, right? Like, it's deep.
Giving you the information that you don't have access to.
Listen,
well, how cool would it be? How could it be if you had a unified dashboard where you can see all of your kids' like activity period?
Oh my God, it would be terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, he doesn't have an infosec team, right? Like he has no right to privacy. I'm paying for that
phone. Emily, you want to go?
I want to talk to 13-year-old Anne about this, because I don't think 13-year-old Anne would want this. I think 13-year-old would be like, fuck you.
I'm glad there were no phones when I was 13. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I had a phone, but nobody knows about it when I was like 13. And I had a like secret boyfriend only talking to him. Like,
you rebel, you.
Yeah, I had a secret phone too.
Oh my gosh, see, I'm
like,
everyone. There was no phone. Like,
confessing.
Yeah,
so
my parents
gets into privacy though. Like, how bad would it be if your parents had found that secret phone? I mean, it's scary.
Yeah.
They might have known about
that too. Balance, right? Like, we need privacy, but we also need agency, but we also need to protect our kids. Mm-hmm. How do we balance that out, Michelle? Like, you mentioned privacy, because dude, I know what I talked about at 13, and it would make like, I do not want that public, right? A lot of fart jokes in there.
Like, I tried to put on one of those apps on my daughter's phone, to see where she was when she was 15 or 16. And she like refused. Like, she was like, now if she's got it on my phone, right? So now she knows where I am. If for some reason she can't find me, she's like texting me like, Mom, where are you? Where are you? Because she's like 25 now, 26. So I'm just like, it's funny how it like it turns around, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to take my kids' privacy away, and sometimes it's terrifying. Like, it all, for me, it's been about trust. It's like if I catch my kid doing something wrong, or if I catch them after the fact, it's like, trying to just be like, okay, like, you screwed up here, because I just think, but every kid is different, and it's tough. I don't have the answers. I mean, I think Emily was saying her kids are in a preschool where they don't have the technology. And, I love that. Or
that's
in a school,
true,
maybe. It's actually school, right? It's like elementary, right? So
yeah, it's elementary. Yeah, I have
Did you know
elementary, preschool, and younger. So yeah, when I say that her exposure to technology is what I give her, that is it. It's whatever we give her at this moment, because she's little. Like, as she gets older, that will change, right? So she's in kindergarten going to first grade. That's going to change quick. So I'm trying to navigate it, and I love talking to other moms and people in different, with different kids in different life stages, because I feel like I can learn so much. And like you said, with the privacy, and I know that my parents, my privacy, they always wanted to know what's going on. And I always felt like, get out of my space. Don't look at my stuff. Don't read my journal, whatever. So now I'm thinking, okay, how do I give my kids that privacy and that trust? Like you said, Michelle, giving that to them, but also feeling like I need to protect them. Where is that balance? How do I figure that out? With everything that we're going through now with AI and technology, how do we find that balance?
But I mean, we know that social media is harming the mental health of our girls.
Yep.
And yet what's being done. I mean, it just keeps we just keep finding out more and more how Meta is stealing data, and there was a thing where if a girl posted a selfie and then took it down, they would send her ads for like beauty care. I mean, how disgusting is that?
Wow,
Oh my God.
And this makes me think that maybe the VCs don't give money to women because we would care about things like that.
Huh, that's a good point. Yeah, because we would basically be like, fuck no, are you kidding me? We're tainting the well, right? These are our future leaders and we're making them insecure. We're building them down. Like that's what I mean about raising a little human, right? Like it's our responsibility to build the next generation, right? And what if our selfishness, for whatever reason, we don't want to be involved parents, or we don't care about regulating their AI use, right? What if it now scales up faster? And then like we have a whole bunch of like selfish people. Oh my God, it's like, I don't want to think about it. That's one option, but it's not real yet, right? So that's, I think, what we're talking about. It's like, well, now we still have a chance to kind of look at the situation and learn from the mistakes of others, and then try to make this a little bit kinder for people, right? Like all these apps want to make money, but they don't want to contribute anything. I would say healthcare is different because it's not like a healthcare app. It's like, whatever. My point being, there's certain industries that lend themselves to just be kinder, right? And I would say me working in the two extremes of healthcare and banking, because banking doesn't do shit, like at all. It's like predatory, I would say, even, right? But then healthcare actually has a noble cause: keep people alive, identify cancers faster, identify interactions with like medications, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like, unfortunately, the buck stops with the moms. I think the moms, actually, if we had more moms, like, I think the world would be a lot better place. Now that I think, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. If we had a mom CEO,
I think
but
about
not like one of
all
those
the time.
performative, right?
Yeah.
She understands multitasking. CEO is
Exactly.
nothing compared to her home life.
But
I think
100%.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think mom necessarily equals, like, I mean, who was head of Facebook for Sandberg? I mean, like, come on, like all this stuff is happening while she was there.
performative mom, because she's not raising good kids. She's creating the next generation of assholes, right?
Yeah,
I'm not talking about
that's
kids.
the
I'm talking about
thing.
Facebook.
It's like
Like Facebook is doing that.
You know, how can you say that? And
but
I'm not saying you say that, but I'm saying it's like
no. I will definitely answer that, because you hit the one person I dislike. Her and like Marissa Mayer, like those women were not for the humanity; they were for themselves, right? That's the difference, right? And like, look at the two examples. Those are the type of women that do get the profiling, that do get whatever, because they're like they keep with the party line, dude. Right? So my point being is like, yeah, there's gonna be bad actors in every race and sex and whatever. But in general, I would like to see more moms. I think my experiment, because that's what it would be. Like I could be, oh my God, I could definitely be wrong. Like it could be the worst. We could have like all these like mothering. Like, you also don't want the extreme of the mothering person that like enables people either, right? You have to have that strong matriarch type. So it's like, I'm gonna make tough decisions, but also be kind about it and think about other people and not my own agenda. Right? Because I have a family to take care of. It's that group mentality of a pack, right? I think maybe that's what I'm really talking about, Michelle. Someone who's like a pack leader and wants to see her pack succeed and survive and thrive, versus the isolationist who's out there for themselves. And that could be a man or woman. I don't care. I just don't want them in power. I'd rather have someone that has my best interest in mind too, which I don't feel
That
exists.
personality type does not want those positions of power. That's the thing.
Yeah. It would take longer for anything to be published or like released. Any product, it would take a million of years to consider everything.
Well, no, when I consider everything, you can still be fast, right? But it's just that you have to be efficient at your thoughts already. You have to be like, I know what to look for, right? So like, and you get better with age, I feel, in certain aspects, because you're like, I'm able to read the situation. I know what I need to do, right? Like, and when you moved into conversation design, that was fairly new for you, but you're able to adapt. Why? Because you're a mom. You're like, this is nothing. I was a mom and a child to someone that needed care, right? So you were sandwiched in and you still survived, right? There's a resilience, I feel, that no one ever talks about when it comes to motherhood. I mean, we push sometimes out of whatever, a child, a whole human, like that's not easy, right? And that's just the start of it. That's the easy part.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I would love to see a company owned by moms in tech for children.
I
Maybe
might
you
be
can
biased.
start
I might be
it.
biased.
Hey, Bendy Math is in development with TechFleet. My math app is being developed by TechFleet. It's called Bendy Math. BEN, capital ND, Nerdiverse Math. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Cool.
good. Yeah. So thank you again, everyone, our panelists and our attendees and the Swarm community and anyone who showed up and listened to us. And yeah, let's keep designing with care and curiosity and our children and our next generation in mind. And we'll see you at the next Swarmathon.
Next Sunday,
Thank
we'll see you
you.
at Designathon.
Yeah, exactly. Next Sunday, the Designathon, and next month, the next Swarmathon. Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.